Welcome to this episode of the Sports Detective Podcast Show. My name is James Williams, and today JJ Redick has officially became the Los Angeles Lakers' next head basketball coach. Okay, by the time I'm actually recording this, he has not become the Lakers' next basketball coach, but a local beat reporter reported it today. Jay Williams all but said it on ESPN. Mike Breen all but said it in an interview. Shams basically reported it 2 weeks ago. But we haven't gotten the Woj bomb yet, and we haven't really heard anything official, even though the NBA Finals have officially ended. So we think that we should be hearing this news come eventually. So I will post this video whenever that news becomes public. If it doesn't, then this will never be aired. But talking about JJ Redick becoming the head coach of the Lakers, I did want to kind of go over the history of people in his background that have become NBA head coaches. And that background, you may be wondering, is guys that have had zero high-level coaching experience jumping into an NBA head coaching job. Because we have had, and that means no like assistant coaching experience. That means no coaching experience. No head coaching experience, no assistant head coaching experience or assistant coaching experience. And there has been about 16 of those guys throughout NBA history. And I'm going to go through all of them. We're going to kind of examine which ones have been good, which ones have been bad, because it is kind of a mixed bag of results. Because I think when we think about that stuff, and a lot of us think about that, we think about a Doc Rivers, who's been very successful. We think about Steve Kerr, who's become one of the most successful NBA head coaches ever. And we think that JJ might fall into that bag. But if you look at the history of this stuff, it's a little bit more of a mixed bag, and it can go from anywhere from the best case scenario, Steve Kerr, to an absolute disaster. So let's go through all of these guys. Let's do everything post merger. So we have 1980, we have Paul Silas, who became the head coach of the San Diego Clippers for 3 seasons. He had a whopping 32% win percentage in those 3 seasons. He did coach the Hornets in the late 90s. When you had those like Larry Johnson teams. He did have a few decent runs with them there. I think they won a playoff series or two, but that's Paul Silas. And you have Dick Van Arsdale. I've never heard of this person before. He was an interim coach for 26 games in 1987 for Phoenix. He went 14-12. You have Dan Issel, 1992. He was the head coach of the Denver Nuggets for 3 seasons, a little bit below 500. Then he came back, coached the Denver Nuggets later in that decade too, was also kind of a little bit below 500 at that point too. You have Quinn Buckner, who coached the Dallas Mavericks for 1 season, and he had one of the worst regular seasons a team has ever had in NBA history, as the Dallas Mavericks were 13-69. You had Magic Johnson, who was an interim in 1994. He went 5-11. Then you have ML Carr, who won 29% of his games in 2 seasons for Boston, including a 15-67 win season. Then it starts to turn up a little bit here. We have Larry Bird, who people might not remember of him being a head coach, even though he did win Coach of the Year, did lead the Indiana Pacers to a finals one time, even though he only coached for 3 years. Then you have Doc Rivers takes over Orlando in 1999. Orlando, he was like basically a 500 coach. You guys know the rest of the Doc Rivers story. Isaiah Thomas takes over for Larry Bird in 2000, coaches 3 seasons. He's a little bit above 500. He also later coached the New York Knicks later in that decade, and that was an absolute train wreck. You have Kevin McHale, who starts becoming a head coach for the Timberwolves in 2005. Later that decade, he takes over for the Rockets. They're pretty bad for a while, and then you get James Harden. You have a few good seasons with James Harden, and then beginning of one season is like 10 games in, James Harden goes up to Daryl Morey's office, and he's like, yeah, get rid of that guy. I hate him. So that's the Kevin McHale story. You have Vinny Del Negro, who had 2 500 seasons with the Chicago Bulls. Then he had a few above-average seasons with the Los Angeles Clippers before Doc Rivers takes over. You have the Mark Jackson experience for 3 years with Golden State, where they're a little bit above 500. They win 1 playoff series. He gets fired after 3 seasons. Jason Kidd coached in Brooklyn for 1 season. Then he became the Bucks head coach and was pretty mid. Was actually kind of bad as the Bucks head coach, because Kidd gets fired, then Budenholzer takes over, and that's when the Bucks Giannis really take off. Okay, so we have that experience. Then 2014, we have a pair of new head coaches. We have Steve Kerr, who you guys all know about Steve Kerr. Then one we forget about a lot, Derek Fisher. Do you guys remember Derek Fisher becoming the head coach of the Knicks? He was absolutely disastrous in 2 seasons, only won 29% of his games. And now he's like coaching like a high school team somewhere. And then the last one, prior to potentially JJ Redick, Steve Nash, 2020, took over the Brooklyn Nets, won one playoff series, made the playoffs twice, won 58% of his games. And I don't know how much of that disaster with the Nets you want to blame on Steve Nash. When he got fired, I think he got too much crap flown his way, but bygones be bygones. The reason I bring all of this stuff up is because when you look at the history of guys like JJ that have no coaching experience prior to becoming a head coach, more than likely JJ is going to be just an average 500 head coach, or he's going to be a slightly above average 500 head coach, kind of similar to the last few years of Darvin Ham and Frank Vogel. The only thing on the JJ part of this, though, I still have never understood why he actually would want this job. Yes, it is the Lakers and the allure and all of the glitz and glamour that goes with becoming the Los Angeles Lakers head coach. But if you're looking at the team, you have two aging superstars that had very good health last year, including one superstar, LeBron James, who's 40 years old, who you're going to have to draft his kid, who you're going to be in charge of developing over the next few years. You also have a lot of other question marks around this roster. And even though AD and LeBron are still all NBA level players, if they make the right moves, there's a lot of ifs if this team is going to be having a chance to win an NBA championship. And it's kind of like if you're going to make that jump, to become a head coach, it's kind of like, why this? Why this? Even if you look at like the previous guys, let's do the last four. It's like Jason Kidd when he took over the Nets. It's like, oh my God, you're coach of the super team with Paul Pierce, KG, Darren Williams, Joe Johnson, Brooke Lopez. You got an awesome squad around you. That didn't last that long though. You look at Steve Kerr, it's like, all right, I'm coaching Steph Curry up on the rise now. Derek Fisher, he takes over the Knicks. So it's like, all right, I'm taking over the Knicks. It's going to be a little bit of a rebuild. And I got Phil Jackson, who was my head coach for a decade. That's going to be the guy running the team. If you look at Steve Nash, it's like, hey, I get a chance to coach Kevin Durant and Kyrie. Like, all right, let's go. I'm ready to go win an NBA championship. JJ Redick, this isn't the case. And he's got a pretty impressive media career so far. So I'm a little bit confused as to why he's doing it. And on top of that, too, it's like, oh, well, he's going to coach LeBron for a few years and then he'll just coach the Lakers after LeBron's gone, too. That'd be like the best case scenario. But if you're JJ, do you really trust the Lakers? And like, this isn't Dr. Jerry Buss running the team anymore. It's his dumb idiot kids. And I understand Jeannie isn't as dumb as like the Bus boys, but since she took over, it's like if you take out the LeBron years after LeBron came, and LeBron's tenure has been kind of dysfunctional, even more so than like the other LeBron stops that he's been. It's just been a huge mess. So I don't understand it from the JJ side of this. If you're looking at the Lakers side of this, though, I actually love this move. If you're the Los Angeles Lakers, because if you are looking at, let's just go through the previous head coaches post Phil Jackson, post titles for the Los Angeles Lakers. So right after Phil Jackson's gone, they get Mike Brown, retread hire. After Mike Brown's gone, they get Mike D'Antoni, retread hire. Byron Scott, retread hire. Luke Walton, oh my God, it's the up and coming assistant coach from the Warriors, and he's kind of sucks. Frank Vogel, retread hire. Darvin Ham, up-and-coming assistant, was kind of eh. So if I'm looking at the last few hires from the Lakers, it's been retread hires and up-and-coming assistants. So if the Lakers were going to hire James Borrego, who was like the other candidate right now for the Lakers, it seems like that is kind of like the same thing. You're just kind of doing the same song and dance over again, and you're expecting different results. So JJ is a little bit of outside the box hire. I'm okay with that. And it's like, if he's a disaster, then you fire him, and then you're kind of in the same place you are right now, where you're going to be going after an up and coming assistant or a retread hire. So I actually love this from the Lakers perspective. And it's like, JJ knows his stuff. My only concern with him would be him and some of the other Duke guys have this. Like, I think Jay Billis has this sometimes on TV. Sometimes, like, when they tell you things, that's kind of like they're talking down to you. So I could see that maybe being a problem sometimes with some players in the NBA. But the other part of this too is, and I think Windhorst said this on ESPN, where it's basically like, if you're coaching a LeBron James team, like, it's LeBron's basically quasi the coach. Basically, your job as the head coach, and the most important attribute that you can have as the head coach, of a LeBron James basketball team is, does LeBron respect you? Does he have your respect? And that is one thing for sure that you know about JJ Redick walking in the door day one, is that he has LeBron's respect. So that is why I actually like this hire for the Lakers. And now, do I think JJ is going to be winning? Like, is he going to have a Steve Kerr run with the Lakers and win like 4 NBA titles as head coach of the Lakers? No. I think we're probably going to, I think they might be a little bit better, but I think these next few years with the Lakers, with LeBron, AD, and whatever cast of characters they put around them, it's going to be kind of like the last few years. So I like the hire, but I don't know if this is it. Obviously, it's not going to be doing anything. It's going to be swinging a title or anything for them. They're going to have to make a lot of other big moves around the edges for the Lakers to get into that type of situation. So there you have it, guys. That is my take on the Los Angeles Lakers hiring JJ Redick. Maybe as their head coach. Again, I'm only posting this if they actually make it official and then Woj tweets it and other big names tweet it and the Lakers announce it. So there you have it, guys. That's going to do it for this episode of the Sports Detective Podcast Show Day. If you like this episode, please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. Please leave a comment on your opinion on the show. If you don't have any opinion on the actual content, maybe just leave a comment and say, hey, you're very handsome. I love your head. I would appreciate that. Doing all that stuff helps small channels like this grow in the algorithm. The more likes, comments, subs we get, the more we get pushed down the algorithm, the more people get to see this content. So if you like this content, if you do all those things, I'd very much appreciate that. You can also follow my Twitter handle or my Twitter. It's in the description below, JD Major 2. If you want to hear my tweets and opinions on things, you'll get some show updates too. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.